CBC reported that a Halifax goalie age 16 was faced with racial slurs at a hockey tournament in PEI. This is not the first time that this happens to the 16-year-old boy. So his name is Mark Connors. He was called the N-word and told that hockey is a white man's sport during a tournament held on November 18th to the 21st on the island. Some of the younger kids in the stands were calling me a racial slur. One guy said Halifax has a nigger for a goalie, said Connors. In the third period, they kept saying nigger, nigger, nigger. And so then they also touched on the fact that this is not the first time that this has happened to him. It also happened in 2017-2018 hockey season when he was then 12 years old. The player who called him the N-word during that altercation was suspended for 45 games when he began serving at the start of the next minor hockey season. They've also reported that Hockey PEI will have a third party to investigate the alleged racist incident at the game in Charlottetown. And the PEI premier contacted the family. Wayne Connors wrote a letter to Cameron outlining, the dad wrote a letter outlining what happened to his son. And then the premier did contact apologizing, saying that they don't want the province to be labeled as a racist place where these things are tolerated and can happen. However, not only do we know that these things happen now twice to the same boy, but we also know that this happens often in hockey. Clinton, what do you think about this?
I think overall it's so sad because it is so rare that in hockey that you even have a person of color playing. Hockey is definitely a very expensive sport to get into, an expensive sport to maintain. Traditionally a pretty closed sport, only certain kinds of families that you typically see in this sport. And so when a Black kid is lucky or privileged enough to enter such a great and competitive sport, it would be so much nicer if they were just met with kindness and embracement and love, like in other sports. Black people were kept out of many other sports for so many years, including basketball, because of a belief that Black people weren't smart enough to understand the game and that they wouldn't be good at it. There are more hockey players in hockey and Atlantic Canada that are Black nowadays, but they're still few and far between. And it must be really hard for them in general to just play a game they love, feel accepted, and stuff like that. I don't have references, but I've heard of many stories of racism within hockey. And again, like I was saying, I think last week about my CBC thing about bullying, how the kids might be bullies, but keep the racism out of it. Hockey guys, sports guys, yeah, they shit on each other a lot. They play around, but when you enter racism into it, it's a different category. And I hope that the PEI ward investigate that situation. I know there were some NHL players from Atlantic Canada that made comments on that situation in the past week. My heart goes out to this kid who had the bravery to move forward, because I imagine he's going to continue to play hockey. I really hope that in stories like this, I think back in the day when people used to come forward, it would make life worse for them. I hope that, I can't remember his name, but I hope that this young man coming forward helps to affect change and sort of helps to carve a pathway for people in the future where it's not like what we heard from that teacher in Petticodiac, where it's okay to hate Black people, just don't call them an N-word to their face and stuff like that. I hope that it really makes people, if they don't change their mentalities, at least, I'm going to say something crazy. If it doesn't make them change their mentalities, at least not be such assholes. Not be such assholes to these young people trying to play sports. Hockey is a great game. It's a great Canadian game, and for a Black Canadian to be playing it is pretty amazing. And I really hope something is done about this.
Before we go to Fidel, I will say PK Subban tweeted, "When does it stop? Believe it or not, these stories are sent to me every day. This is happening every day in our game, every day. Leave your comments and support for Mark below. Hang in there. We got you." So, people are rallying around and saying like, this isn't new and this isn't going to change. And hopefully something can be done about this. Fidel, what's your take?
I mean, I am not surprised, I guess. I think people forget that Michael Subban, PK Subban's brother, when they were at the juniors final, he was the goalie, and it was a shootout and he lost, and he got called the N-word so many times that they had to even block it in TSN. PK Subban has said many times how much he had to deal with racism. Many hockey players in the NHL, no, we're not talking like the minors, the NHL, they have faced racism. If you look at places like soccer, if you get Mario Balotelli, which was part of the Italian, but he was the only black player in Italy, and he faced a bunch of racism for his contribution in the Italian team. Again, white-led sports are racist. I can't. I mean, I can't tell you anything different. It is what it is. Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, he's the only black man there, and he has said that he has been facing racism his whole life. If you go to places, like any white sport, if you look at 43, which is a movie about Jackie Robinson, he faced racism in baseball. If you look at race, which is another about the Olympic in the Nazi era, he faced racism in sprinting. Again, I don't think there's any sport that a black man has actually tried to be the first that has not have filled with racism. Any white-led sport, it is racism. There's going to be racism. It is sad. It is disgusting, but it's the fact. I mean, and I seen this junior hockey things. Parents, when their kids are playing sport, the evil comes out of them, and they, like, even referees get it. Like, it is like, it's nasty. And again, and I myself, I say, this is just a sport. Like, chill out. This is entertainment. I mean, they're athletes. They yeah, it is something great that your kids are doing, but calm the fuck down. Like, the referee has no issue with you. Why are you gonna curse him out or do something like that? But I mean, we forget that all the white led sports are racist. People, like, what do you think? You think that they, like, I never seen a sport, professional sport, that is on, unless there's black people on it first, that people being like, oh, you guys are all welcome, hey, here you go, let's go, amazing. No, that has never happened in the history of no professional sports ever. I feel bad for this kid. Again, keep playing hockey. Unfortunately, this is something you're going to have to deal with. Report them, call them out, do what you need to do if you really love this sports. But unfortunately, I mean, the NHL has this issue, for God's sakes. The NHL, which is the pinnacle of what hockey is. Do we expect any better from the other leagues, for the lower leagues? Like, it's it's sad, but it's something that, again, we need to change that. And I'm not a hockey guy, but I think everybody needs to do their part and call out people who do these things, and be called out publicly in order for this to stop, because that's the only way it's going to stop.
I think for me, that was my bigger issue reading this story. Like, I've never been, I don't know if you can tell by the everything about me, but not a sporty girl. Like, the most I did was cheerleading when I was like younger, never any sports, certainly not something like hockey, and wasn't around my brothers when they were playing soccer. So I don't know what those experiences are like. What I was really taken aback by was the age, especially considering I feel like we're hearing a lot of stories lately about different issues involving racism and intense bullying in other schools. The teacher in Petticodiac, a story about, like basically a 40 versus 1 mob at Fredericton High School, and the teacher who reported on that potentially getting suspended or fired for ever posting on Facebook about it. And for me, it's like, as much as it's a race issue, I'm just so surprised that we keep saying, we're teaching the younger generation to be better, to be more mindful. Like, they want to uptake social justice and use social media for the betterment of society. And then I feel like everywhere I've turned in the last 3 weeks, it's been the complete opposite, where you've got like racial slurs abound in sports, on social media, in private conversations, and adults who are supposed to be examples letting this shit fucking fly. And I think that's where, for me, like, I'm not surprised that a white-led sport has racism. I think I was just really saddened by their age, by the fact that it's kids, by the fact that, like, the coaches and team members and parents aren't doing shit to make any kind of change or make any of these situations better. And I think that's where, for me, I was more taken aback reading the story. And I think it's really sad. You should be able to have any extracurricular, play any sport, and not be told that it belongs to white people and that you don't belong. You absolutely do.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
guess that's the thing. I mean, again, black people have to break the barriers, whereas white people have to do absolutely nothing. Like you just come in. I think Chris Rock said in a stand up special that he lived in a place in New Jersey, and his neighbors were JC, Mary J. Blige, and a baseball player, a Hall of Famer. So he said like and Eddie Murphy. So he said like, okay, my neighbors are there have five black neighbors. Eddie Murphy, one of the greatest comedians that ever lived, the baseball player, one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. Mary J. Blige, one of the greatest singers that ever lived. Chris Rock, which is a great comedian, and his neighbor, his actual neighbor, he's a dentist. He didn't make anything. He's not the best dentist. He's not the best in his category. He's just a dentist. He's saying like that means the black man has to fly to and the white man can just walk in. Like it's always been like that. Jackie Robinson had to be the best player to get into other people to get into the baseball league. In hockey, I mean that's not the case because the first hockey player is a Frederictonian. It's a Fredericton-born Maritimer. He was an okay hockey player for his stats. But again, and after him, not a whole lot of black players have been there. So it's all sports. Again, we see basketball and football now that is led by black players, but that wasn't the case 50 years ago. That was not the case. Like that was not the case at all. Now it's dominated by them, but that's not the case at all. Like they had to fight for this, and that's usually what black people have to do, and that's what we want people to understand, that black people have to fight for things and get for things when pretty much a white person could just go in and it's like, oh, okay, it's a normal thing, right? And again, you don't see it because it doesn't affect you, but as a person of color, you live through that most times of your life. So go ahead, Quentin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just found an article here from another former NHL player who also played for UPEI Panthers named Joel Ward. And he said an interesting comment here. He said it brings back memories of him when he was playing in the leagues in Atlantic Canada. And he said something that like rings true and relates to something I said earlier. Is he said, I feel for this young man. He's just playing a Nets, just playing the game. And you got these other kids that are abusing him from behind. It's people should be ashamed of themselves. But he says it brings back a lot of memories because a lot of people don't know what this young man is feeling on a day like today, where all of a sudden everyone's looking at him in a certain way and wondering how he's feeling and what he's doing. And that it's horrifying to know that he has to suffer through this and then go back to school and pretend like nothing happened and keep a straight face. So it's a lot to shoulder. So again, I'm pointing out his quote because it takes a lot of bravery to come forward about stuff like this. And when back in the day, he would absolutely be shamed and probably get in more trouble for doing something like this. Of course, like on a Colin Kaepernick level almost. I just hope that when he goes back to his life and goes back to hockey and goes back to school, that he gets more support than hate and that something gets done about it. I know that you're not going to change all of white sports overnight, but I just hope where he is among the teams he's with, coaches, players, referees, the parents that are going to be screaming shit anyways. I hope that the racism against him at least decreases over time for his bravery to come forward.
And again, this is not, I will stress this is not just a maritime thing. If you go to any small town in Canada, whether it's in Ontario, whether it's in Manitoba, whether it's in Edmonton, whether it's in British Columbia, if you will see a black kid or an Asian kid or a Hindu kid or anything that's black or brown playing hockey, there's going to be racism. That is not something that we want, but that's what it is, unfortunately. So, all right, we're going to cut this. I think we're going to wrap this up. But before we do, we have some recommendations. We are trying this out, that we're recommending things to people that we like. Or that we think it might be interesting. So we're going to start with Hillary. Ladies first, what do you recommend for this week?
So mine also sort of shouts out the blog that I just wrote, but it's the book Out of the Sun on Race and Storytelling by Essie Edugian. It's such an interesting book, especially because of the conversation that we had with George Eliot Clark about erasure, because all she does as an author and a poet is looks at Black art and Black ghost stories and other elements of history where Black people have been essentially erased, but were always there. So she describes, how interesting it is that like ghost stories are told by white people for white people to keep white history alive. But what about the Black ghosts of slaves or, Black royalty, etc.? And why isn't that a thing? And then the whole first section is sort of more about Black artists and Black portraiture and how slaves were depicted as like having fun in these pictures, and we all know that's not the case. And so her sort of doing a deep dive into what the truth really is. So I'm enjoying it so far. I'm about halfway. It's a really quick read, but it like I feel like not only is it a good book, but it's become almost a reference novel, because I could Google probably 10 of the names in the first half of this book and expand my knowledge as a Black person. And I think it's really great. Some of it's a little jarring and upsetting, but really, really good. So Out of the Sun on Race and Storytelling by Essie Edugyan.
All right. Clinton, what do you got for us?
Cool. I just want to talk about a music app that I found recently that I think is really cool, both for listeners and for artists. It's a new app called Audius, and it's really cool because it's free. The music is super high quality, higher than you're going to get with like a Spotify. It's more on par with like Tidal and music services like that, but it's free. And it's new, but there's already a lot of artists on it, like Lil Wayne, Skrillex, Weezer, Deadmau5, Diplo, Odessa, and it's just like something that we used to talk about a lot is the narrative of Spotify, and how if you're an artist, throughout the industry that Spotify pays their artists nothing, next to nothing. You can have 7,000 streams and make like, I don't know, something like 14 cents or something. So for listeners, Audius, Audius, if you want to check it out, you can hear like amazing, super high quality music for free. It has Google Cast, so you can cast like we've been playing it in my salon sometimes. You can cast to Google speakers and things like that. And also, if you're an artist, you can sign up to it and put your music on it, because as the app grows, you can serve to make probably a lot more off of music like that than putting music on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that.
And the best thing about Audius is built on the blockchain, so you could see all the transactions. So shout out to Audius. I actually know some people that work there, so that's cool. For me, I will go with music. If you like hip hop and you are like a early 2000 to 90s baby, I would recommend the verses of Bone Thugs and Harmony versus 3-6 Mafia. Definitely is quite a show. It reminded me of why I stopped going to hip hop concerts, because there was fights, people were throwing stuff at each other. Busy Bone starts to fight with Juicy J. It's quite entertaining. They throw money, they bring stripper. It's definitely quite something to see if you're a hip hop fan. If you're not a hip hop fan, definitely this is not gonna. But I definitely recommend it just because it brings you the culture of that hip hop was in New York, but these people Bone Thugs are from Cleveland and 3-6 Mafia are from Tennessee. So you see how like the Southern and the Midwest kind of hip hop culture was. So it was quite entertaining. So I definitely recommend that. So having that said, we're gonna conclude this episode, guys. You have anything else to say?
Clinton Davis. Find me online if you want to talk to me.
I'm Crapberry and I need a nap. I'm going back to bed.
Where'd your glasses go? You took off your glasses.
It's because I didn't like how they were reflecting I've got like a screen to light me up behind my screen, and I didn't like all the reflection, even though I don't know how many people are going to see the video version. If you want to see me wearing my glasses, go to YouTube at the end of the week and watch the video version of this podcast. Oh, sorry. Also, hopefully being released Thursday, a special episode of Black in the Maritimes that I am hosting with Savannah Thomas, Calcadon, and I believe special guest Clinton's wife, Sally, is also going to come on and talk about some of the racism that is coming out of Petitcodiac Regional School, but more importantly, as women who've all attended school in New Brunswick, our experiences and what we think needs to change in the school system. So keep an eye on our social media for when that gets launched.
I actually didn't know that, but I was going to recommend that. So the fact that that's happening is cool.
What happened to Linda Way? She's not coming to that one?
She's having a medical procedure, so I might be doing
Oh,
French content with her for our social medias on the same topic. I'm trying to do the most,
okay.
but I still need that nap.
No, perfect. All right, so guys, just follow us on social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok at Black in the Maritimes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify. Leave a comment, rate us 5 stars. That really helps the show. If you like what we're doing, donate us on Patreon, and we're gonna have another app that you will be able to donate to us or donate on PayPal. So definitely see that around, and uh, if you liked, just comment or send us an email at blackinthemaritimes@gmail.com. Peace out.
Peace.
Bye.